Good morning, endurance friends. Matt Mossman, the Chief Endurance Officer over at EndurElite, coming at you with our fourth live broadcast. Now we're just going to wait a few minutes for some people to join up, and we'll get right to it. I hope everybody's having a good weekend so far. Getting outside, getting some good riding or running in, and enjoying the little bit warmer weather. It's been super cold here in South Dakota per usual, so we're in a little bit of a heat wave right now. I think last week we were dealing with like a foot of snow and negative temperatures, but it finally warmed up to about 20 degrees today. Hey Adam, Matthew, Paul, Nathan, good to see you on here. Drew and Casey, my Spearfish peeps, logging on to watch today. So we'll get started as people join in. We can talk about some more things here, but today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about three different things. We're going to do a little bit of a deep dive on the Perform Elite pre-workout. We're going to tell you about some cool contests coming up, and then we'll kind of open it up for some live Q&A. Now, full disclosure, I usually don't like to talk about products in my video and push them in front of your face. I'd rather have you guys do the research, watch the videos I do and make the decision if it's right or not for you. But the reason I'm doing this today, I was on a Facebook message board, and there were a lot of questions like, taking a pre-workout before endurance exercise, and you hear all this stuff like, it causes cramping, it's going to cause my heart to explode, it's going to do yada, 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 and all this basically, nonsense for the most part. But, I think the big misconception is people think of a pre-workout. They think of, your typical gym pre-workout that's loaded full of crazy stimulants and gray area ingredients and all that stuff, which, I definitely would not recommend for, for endurance exercise. So what we'll do is we'll just kind of describe, who Perform Elite is for, who it's not for. We'll discuss about 3 or 4 of the ingredients, and then kind of tell you the best way to take it and whatnot. And then we can kind of open it up again to some Q&A after that if you have any specific questions about Perform Elite. So with Perform Elite, as you can see here, right on the label, there we go. This is a pre-workout specifically designed for endurance athlete. It's not designed for the gym bro, the guy going in and lifting weights and things like that. It's designed specifically for the endurance athlete. And with that in mind, we've included ingredients that have been shown by clinical research to improve endurance performance. We're not throwing ingredients in there that, have studies on rats done on it or, shows in one study it worked. Most of the ingredients in Perform Elite have multiple studies behind them showing to be safe and effective for endurance exercise. So what are a few of these? So one of the main ingredients in Perform Elite is beetroot powder. Now, beetroot seems to be the big hot endurance supplement over the last, 3 years. Multiple companies have released a standalone beetroot product or put it in some kind of product meant to enhance endurance performance. But with Perform Elite, we put 1,670 milligrams of beetroot powder in there. That yield approximately 500 milligrams of nitrates. And the nitrates are really what's going to provide that ergogenic or performance enhancing benefit when it comes to endurance exercise. So what the beetroot does is a high source of nitrate. Nitrates cause NO production in the body, which creates endothelial relaxation or relaxation of the blood vessels. So more blood gets to working muscles. And essentially what beetroot powder does is it lowers the oxygen cost or ATP demands of exercise. So hard work seems easier when you take a beetroot powder. And that's why we really included it in Perform Elite. Besides caffeine, what we'll get here into a second, and beta-alanine, beetroot is probably one of my top recommendations for a good endurance enhancing supplement. Now with beetroot powder, a small percentage of the population, I just have to touch on this real quick because it's kind of funny actually, but a small percentage of the population will take a beetroot powder and they'll poop bright red. And I would probably freak out if this happened to me, but it's a common, well, not a common side effect, but a side effect of taking beet is beeturia, where it's just a pigment and the beetroot powder can't be digested and your urine will look like hot lava and your poop will be bright red. So if that happens, don't freak out. So no big deal there. Let's talk about another ingredient in Perform Elite. Let's talk about beta-alanine a little bit. A lot of you are familiar with beta-alanine. In Perform Elite, we have 3,200 milligrams of beta-alanine, or a clinical dose. And that's really important to notice about all these ingredients in Perform Elite is they're clinically dosed. And that means it has the efficacious amount. It doesn't, fairy dust stuff in there like a lot of other, supplements or pre-workouts where it, does absolutely nothing. So efficacious dose of beta-alanine. But what most people don't know is with beta-alanine, you can't just take it one time and it's going to do something. Beta-alanine requires a loading period. So if you're taking 3.2 grams a day, it's going to take about 28 days to fully saturate muscle carnosine stores. And that's something a lot of people don't know as well. It's not really the beta-alanine per se specifically that provides the effect. It's what happens to the beta-alanine when it's consumed. And that's converted into carnosine in the body. Now, what carnosine does is you can think of it as a buffer. So when you exercise, the theory goes, especially as you go harder and longer, that you have a buildup of hydrogen ions, which causes muscle acidity, which causes fatigue, and so on and so forth. And that's the point where, you start to get fatigued and the exercise has to stop because you just can't push any longer. So what carnosine does is it acts as a acidity buffer, basically, so it can prolong exercise, and it's especially effective for harder, intenser efforts lasting about 60 to 240 seconds. So if you're thinking like as a cyclist or something like that, that could be like a breakaway attempt. With running, it could be, making a sprint towards the finish line, things of that nature. And that's where beta-alanine really comes into effect and provides a huge benefit. And like I said, besides caffeine, I would say, beta-alanine in terms of endurance performance has some of the most solid clinical research behind it. So that's another ingredient in Perform Elite. Again, at 3,200 milligrams, that's considered an effective dose. Let's go right to one that everybody loves, and that is caffeine. So, well, you know what? Before we go to caffeine, let's talk about one more thing about beta-alanine. Beta-alanine in people who haven't taken it, again, can freak people out a little bit. One of the harmless side effects of beta-alanine is it can cause paresthesia, or it's like bright, itchy red skin, or you can kind of feel it like tingling in the more sensitive parts of your body, like your face, your ears, your elbows, and things like that. Like the first time I took beta-alanine, I turned into like the red Incredible Hulk. I was like, what the hell is going on? But that is one of the harmless side effects of beta-alanine, but it goes away with continued use. So if you take, Perform Elite for the first time and you notice a tingling and itching and things like that, it's slightly annoying, but it will go away with continued use. So don't freak out. So back to the caffeine. Now, caffeine, hands down, is, I would argue with anybody, the most effective ergogenic aid when it comes to enhancing endurance performance. I mean, there's thousands of studies out there that, show it improves time to fatigue, reduces the rating of perceived exertion or how hard exercise seems. The list goes on and on and on. And how caffeine really works, I mean, there's 3 proposed mechanisms how caffeine works, and the most accepted one is caffeine competes with a molecule called adenosine in the body. And when adenosine itself binds to the adenosine receptor, that's kind of when you start to feel fatigued or tired. But basically what caffeine does is says, adenosine, get the hell out of here. It binds to the adenosine receptor, and that's where you kind of get that awake and alert feeling. So that's the primary mechanism. Some people think, caffeine can help spare glycogen, or caffeine can increase the release of calcium from something called the sarcoplasmic reticulum, what has to do with muscle contractions. But, I'm not quite sure on those as so much the first one, where it prevents the fatigue by binding to the adenosine receptor. So that's kind of the mechanisms behind caffeine. So with Perform Elite, we have 2 different kinds of caffeine in there. We have 150 milligrams of caffeine anhydrous, and then we have another 150 milligrams of something called Pure Energy, which is an extended release caffeine. But in total, there's about 215 milligrams of total caffeine in Perform Elite. Now why that amount? I could have put like 100 to 150 milligrams in, but majority of the research shows that you need about 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram of body weight to get an ergogenic effect from caffeine. Let's see. Nathan, let me answer this question real quick. If you poop red, does that mean you're not getting the benefits from beetroot? Not at all. It's just the pigment that your body can't process within the beet, so it won't affect how beetroot can enhance endurance performance. So yeah, if you poop red, don't worry, you're still getting the benefits of beetroot powder. So back to the caffeine. 150 milligrams of caffeine anhydrous, which you think of a lot of times. So this is just dried out caffeine. Now to note, and what's really interesting is that like supplemental caffeine anhydrous has been shown to be more effective than the caffeine found in coffee, and nobody really knows why. I mean, there was a couple studies on it. So that's one of the reasons caffeine anhydrous is in there at 150 milligrams, because, well, coffee's good before working out if you don't take Perform Elite, I guess. So 150 milligrams of caffeine anhydrous. Half-life of caffeine by itself is about 6 hours. So after 6 hours, about half of what you consumed is still left in circulation. And with caffeine, when you take it, it shows up in the bloodstream in about 15 minutes and reaches peak concentrations after about 60 minutes. So this is why we are, recommending take Perform Elite 30 minutes before exercise. So it's reaching that peak concentrations as you go on and when you hit the 60 minutes. So that's the first form of caffeine. Now, Pure Energy is really, really cool. And what Pure Energy is a caffeine anhydrous combined with pterostilbene, as it was called, and that's a blueberry extract. And there's a couple of really cool research studies on this. And basically what Pure Energy does, the simplest point, is Pure Energy extends the half-life of caffeine up to about 8 hours. So that's one really cool thing about it. And then also, it doesn't cause that typical caffeine crash. Like if I put 215 milligrams of pure caffeine anhydrous in there, you might get a nice boost, but you might get that subsequent like jitters and crash that you get from caffeine anhydrous. So that's really why myself and my partner decided to do the caffeine anhydrous Pure Energy combo and Perform Elite. So you get, that immediate impact of caffeine anhydrous, and then it's just prolonged and some nice gentle letdown after that. And again, like I said, it can last up to 8 hours, which is really nice if you get on to your day after that, just to have a little bit more of energy. So while we're on the topic of caffeine, let's just discuss something real quick. And one of the questions I commonly get on Perform Elite, and they basically say, a lot of people say, caffeine causes dehydration, or caffeine is going to make my heart rate go so high during endurance exercise. And both of those are complete BS. So this caffeine and dehydration myth goes back to a study, don't quote me on this, but I think it was back in like 1960, where the researchers gave the subjects caffeine anhydrous with, I forget what it was, like 12 to 16 ounces of water, and he noticed higher urine output. Well, no shit, you gave him 16 ounces of water. What do you think, is going to happen? Are you going to tell me that, water causes dehydration because after you drink it, you pee it out? No, that's just crazy to think. So subsequent studies after that showed, caffeine consumption up even to like about 400 milligrams caused no influx of like bodily fluid that would cause dehydration or have any negative effect on exercise performance. So if anybody ever tells you that caffeine causes dehydration, just raise your right hand and just slap them across the face for me, but very gently so you don't get, assault charges put on you. So caffeine does not cause dehydration. It's total baloney. The second one is that, common myth is caffeine before exercise, especially like endurance exercise, is going to cause your heart rate to go through the roof. And again, that's not the case, especially like in submaximal exercise. So at lower intensities, caffeine can actually decrease heart rate. Surprisingly, I mean, doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but it does. And then with people that are habituated to caffeine, and even at higher intensities, has been shown to lower heart rate as well. So that goes back to, caffeine with that effect of basically reducing how hard endurance exercise feels. So like I said, caffeine, hands down, and I would challenge anybody to argue with me on this, but caffeine, hands down, is the most ergogenic supplement when it comes to endurance performance. Maybe I shouldn't say that. After carbs, like if you can consider carbs a supplement, caffeine is second in line for increasing endurance performance, hands down. So that's a little bit about caffeine. Let's see, what else should we talk about? Let's talk about a couple ingredients in our anti-fatigue and focus matrix. So in there, you're going to have 1,000 milligrams of choline bitartrate and some huperzine A. And we put this in there basically like for the focus factor. And there's a ton of research on choline and huperzine. Because during endurance exercise that the physical part it's only one part of it. But the whole mentality of endurance exercise can mean the difference between winning and losing. That mentally tough person, or the guy or gal that's able to stay focused, is probably going to be, you know, all things equal, is going to be the winner when it comes to racing. So choline serves a couple different functions in the body. One, it can help with, this is outside of focus, it can help with efficient muscle contractions. Choline is converted into acetylcholine in the body, and acetylcholine is required for the transmissions from motor unit for the muscle to fire and contract. And that's I mean, that's part of the reason we put it in Perform Elite, but more of it's just the mental focus. Choline bitartrate, when it's combined to tartaric acid, it can cross that blood-brain barrier, and it basically just helps everything fire in the brain. Simply put, without going into too much explanation, makes the nerves and things, the neurons in the brain fire, and it creates like almost that zoned effect where you're dialed in, you're focused on the task at hand. And you can just keep on plugging along, especially when the exercise gets hard. So that's choline bitartrate. And then we added huperzine A. And huperzine A by itself wouldn't do too much, but what huperzine A does is it inhibits the breakdown of choline. So you have a certain amount in the choline pool, and it gets depleted during exercise. Well, huperzine A, again, basically inhibits the breakdown of choline, so the choline pool stays at a higher amount throughout endurance exercise. So those are those two. A couple other ingredients to note: taurine, which is, you know, one you're all pretty familiar with, but, you know, we just did an article on taurine too. But just rest assured, taurine is not from bull semen. It's made from a couple amino acids right now, and originally was discovered in bull bile, not bull semen. That would be disgusting. But taurine does a couple things. It can act as an osmolyte in the body. It can protect cells against heat stress during exercise. But more importantly, taurine can help with angiogenesis, or the formation of new blood vessels like capillaries. And we know if we have more capillaries around the muscle fiber, that's more efficient transport of blood and oxygen into the muscles. And those are muscles that work better during endurance exercise. So we have a good, healthy dose of taurine in there. We have a cool ingredient called Pico-2, and this is cordyceps, which is a mushroom and other mushroom blends. A lot of cool research done on this at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hills, showing that a dose of 1 gram daily can have significant improvements in VO2 max and power output. Now, as an endurance athlete, you probably don't think, why would I need any power? But if you think on a bike, you know, power production is huge. And even with running, if you can produce more power with each footstep, you know, you're going to go, well, probably get a longer stride length. And like I said, power is just important, like for sprinting and grinding up hills and things like that, or if you're an OCR athlete, when you do more of those explosive type things during the race, you want to be able to generate a lot of power. And then the last one in here, just real briefly, we put an ingredient called Elevate ATP in here. My partner and I actually did the clinical research study on Elevate ATP, and basically this helps with ATP, well, as the name implies, helps with ATP production in the body. ATP is required for every single thing you do, from the breath you take to, you know, the fingers you move to muscular contractions. So with all these ingredients, I won't bore you too much with the details anymore. With all these ingredients, you can head over to the Endure Elite blog, and I think we have a blog up on every single ingredient at this point. Describing, you know, what it is, the certain benefits, and most importantly, we're just not spitting a bunch of bro science out at you. Just saying, you know, this is what it is because this is what we experienced with it. I mean, that crap runs rampant with supplements. Is, you know, the bro science behind this is total crap. So everything in our articles are referenced by sound scientific research. So I definitely encourage you to go over to the Endure Elite blog, check out all these ingredients if you want to, and again, do the research for yourself. Like I said before, I hate doing like pushing products in people's faces and stuff like that. This is probably the one exception in this video where I'll put Perform Elite in front of your face, just because I want to describe to you again how it's different from like a typical like gym pre-workout, and why we put some of the ingredients in there that we did. So let's go on to the next thing. Some common questions I get about Perform Elite. Should I take Perform Elite every day? Yes, you should take it every day, and I'm not just telling you just because I want to sell more products. God honest truth. And the reason why I say to take Perform Elite every day is 95% of the ingredients have an acute effect, so you take it one time, you'll notice a lot of effects, but some of the ingredients work better as you take them longer. Again, like the beta-alanine, you want to chronically load that to get the full effect. The same thing with beetroot powder. It has nice acute effects, but the more you take it, the better it is. There's one more in there with the Pico 2, the effects just get better as you take it longer. If you absolutely don't want to take it every day, I totally understand. In that case, I would take it just like on hard workout days and races, and then maybe find a standalone beetroot product or a standalone beta-alanine to supplement with on the days that you don't take Perform-Elite. What else do we get on Perform-Elite as far as a question? I mean, that's really the main one. Let's open it up to any kind of questions you guys might have about Perform-Elite for a few seconds here, just so I can answer anything before I go on to the next topic. And I'm going to wait here about 10-15 seconds, and then if there's not any questions, we'll go on and talk about some cool contests we have coming up with EndurElite. Okay, so Michael, my good friend Michael, what is the best fluid to mix Perform-Elite with? Mix Perform-Elite with 8 to 16 ounces of cold water. I wouldn't do it any other way. I mean, you could mix it with a fruit juice if you want a little bit of carbs. If you want a little bit of carbs with it, but otherwise 8 to 16 ounces of water with the Perform-Elite. Really depend on how you like the flavor intensity. Like if you want just a little bit sweeter, go with a lesser amount. If you want it less sweet, go with the 16 ounces. Casey asks, if you are in a really long event, do you take it more than once during the event? That's a really good question, and that's a question we get quite often. So if you're in a really long event, like I said, a lot of these ingredients in Perform-Elite, the half-life, like caffeine, is about 6 hours, and a lot of the other ingredients are between like 3 to 6 hours. So if you're in a really long event, I would take Perform-Elite like after your initial dose, 30 minutes before exercise. So take your initial dose 30 minutes before exercise, and then I would take it every 4 to 5 hours thereafter. And this is something I would probably want you to experiment with in training too, just to kind of see what works best. Because if you get that 215 milligrams of caffeine like 4 hours in, you're probably going to have a little more than half that amount in the circulation, and then you can be like I said, you can be good to go to take another scoop of Perform-Elite without like some of those things sending you over the top or making you all jittery and anxious and things like that. Let's see, Nathan, can you explain the difference between nitrates that help with endurance and the ones we want to avoid in bacon, for example? Nathan, that's a really good question. I don't think I'm familiar with any of the differences at all. Like I know there was a study back, God, it was a long time ago, and it was entitled "Beware the Pickle," quite honestly, and it was this big article like bashing nitrates and how bad they are for you and things like that. But subsequent research from nitrates from food like spinach and foods that are naturally high in nitrates, I'm not familiar with any like unhealthy effects. You actually might be more familiar with that one on the bacon. I can get back to you on that one. And this is good to point out, like with Nathan asked, sometimes I won't know some of the answers to these questions, but you know what? I'll find out for you, and I'll let you know if I can't answer the question. So I don't know if that answers your question at all, Nathan. I apologize if it doesn't, but I will look into that for you. But as far as I know, and you may know something different, I don't think like dietary nitrates on the food source really have any unhealthy side effects, but there is like, how stuff happens like in the health and fitness world where like, one crazy study will come out and it's just a terribly run study and the news takes it, just runs with it. And it's like, bananas are bad for you or something like that. And people just run with it. I think that's kind of what happened with nitrates, and it's particularly that study called Beware the Pickle. It just sounds so weird. But Nathan, I will find out for you, and I'll get you an exact answer on that if I'm incorrect on that point. So, any other questions on Perform-Elite before we go to the next topic? and we'll keep it open for about, I don't know, 10 seconds here, so I don't have to sit in awkward silence and have you guys look at me. I mean, I know I'm pretty and all and stuff like that, but I hopefully have some substance to what I'm saying here. All right, let's move on to the next topic. If you guys want to fire any more questions away as I go along, please feel free to. Hi, Kelly. So let's talk about a cool contest we're going to have coming up here pretty soon. So the contest is going to be titled, How Do You Perform Elite, or Where Has Perform Elite Taken You? And what we're going to do here is, well, here's what you're going to do. You were going to tag Endure Elite and 3 of your friends in your social media posts, taking a kick-ass picture of, where Perform Elite has taken you, or take a picture of you after just like smashing a workout or something like that. And it's going to say something, at Endure Elite, Perform Elite has just taken me to the top of Mount Everest and back, and I smashed Kilian Jordan's record going up, or something like that. So what you're going to do is you're going to take Endure Elite, take 3 friends, tell them, tell the world where Perform Elite has taken you, or how you perform elite. And then what we're going to do is, on a bi-weekly basis, we're going to choose 2 winners based on the picture and what they're saying, and we're going to start handing out a lot of cool, like, Endure Elite gear, like Endure Elite tech tees. We'll have some more casual tees coming down the line. We'll be giving away some of the Perform Elite, some of our Sustain Elite product coming out soon. We'll be giving out water bottles, these cool and in very demand handmade mugs and beer steins and flasks and all sort of things. And we'll post some stuff up on social media with the rules again to follow for this How Do You Perform Elite contest, or Where Has Perform Elite Taken You. But just keep it on in the back of your head, and actually it's going to start today. And like I said, we'll choose a winner every couple weeks, and we'll get some cool gear going your way. So I think that is about all I have for today. If there's no other questions, oh man, we've been at this for about 30 minutes. I don't want to take up your guys this whole weekend. If there's no other questions, I'm going to probably log off here and get back to my day. If you think of questions after this broadcast, all of you can feel free to direct message me anytime about any questions you have in terms of endurance training, nutrition, or supplementation, and I'll do my best to get back to you and provide a good answer for you. So let me just wait here again for 10 to 15 seconds in awkward silence, and then if there's no questions, I'm gonna take off. Michael Mark, is your recovery product coming out this year? Yes, it is, Michael Mark. So after we get Sustain Elite out, our sports drink here at the end of the month, like I'm really hoping to have it here by like the first day in March, or that's what my contract manufacturer is telling me, is when we'll start to finalize. I need it too, because there is a lot of garbage out there in terms of recovery products. We actually have a pretty cool article coming out that's going to blow the doors wide open on some of the recovery products you guys take right now and why they're a scam. So yeah, the recovery product, I'm going to shoot, worst case scenario 3 months from now, best case scenario 2 months from now. We have the formula finalized, and we sent it off to our contract manufacturer for flavoring right now. And what I'm doing with this is I'm going to have a chocolate flavor made, just to see what it's like. I'm going to have a tropical flavor made, and then we're going to kind of make some decisions on there as far as the first flavor we want to release. So 2 months from now. But with the recovery product, it's going to be really cool. I can touch on this real quick. What the recovery product is going to have it's not when you think of recovery, you probably think of like a strict protein, and the Recover Elite that we're making is not gonna, it's kind of going to be like that, but it's not going to be like a strictly a protein. I mean, after endurance exercise, you want more than just protein. You want enough carbs to replace glycogen, and then you want also protein to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, or that fancy physiological process that leads to muscle repair and growth. So with the carb blend, we'll have about 50 grams of carbs, if I remember correctly, in Recover Elite, and we'll have 5 different carb sources in there. We'll have cyclic dextrin, we'll have a couple simple sugars, we'll have a sweet potato powder, we'll have a rice powder, and that's just so you're going to have varying rates of digestion. on those carbs. So you have the fast, simple sugars that will act really fast, as the name implies, and then you'll have more of a sustained released carbohydrate. And the main goal with that, again, is to help resaturate muscle glycogen stores. So that'll be the carb blend. For the protein blend, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're not going to do like a strict whey protein concentrate or whey protein isolate. What we're going to do is we're going to stick 16 grams of hydrolyzed whey in there, plus 3 grams of leucine. Now, hydrolyzed whey is a little bit different from whey isolate and whey concentrate. You can consider it like a pre-digested protein, which sounds really gross, but essentially hydrolyzed whey is different from a concentrate or isolate because it's broken further down, so it doesn't require as much in terms of like digesting and absorption. So, you know, why the 16 grams? You know, from previous videos, you always hear me saying you need to get 20 to 25 grams of protein to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. But what a lot of people don't know is when you get a really high quality source of hydrolyzed whey, and when you pair that with 3 grams of leucine, which is a branched chain amino acid, that stimulates muscle protein synthesis just as much as 25 grams of a whey concentrate. So that's kind of why we did that. We will stick a couple other ingredients in there, some really cool patented ones like L-carnitine L-tartrate, which has been shown to help with recovery. Something called Astrogen, which has a lot of cool clinical research that increases like the bioavailability or how well these ingredients are absorbed. And then we'll have an electrolyte blend in there as well. So it's going to cover all bases of recovery. And like I said, it's going to be an awesome product. Like everything we make with Performally, we have zero interest in like making a watered down product like, you know, 99.9% of the supplement companies out there. Now I can say that because I've worked in the supplement company for 15 years and I see what a lot of companies do with their products. Like legitimately, when I used to make products for other companies, I would provide them with a great formula and they would look at it and be like, holy shit, this is a great formula, but you know, it costs so much, Matt. So what they would do is they would take that formula and like slice it down so it's, you know, it may look good on the label, but you know, with the amounts in it, it's not effective. And with Endurelite, like I have zero interest in offering a watered down product. I mean, I don't want to cheat you guys. And, you know, this is stuff only I feel comfortable taking, like with Endurelite. So back to my point, all the products, whether it's Performally, Sustainably, Recoverly, and the products we have coming out, it's going to be like nothing you've ever seen before, because honestly, most companies don't want to spend the money to make the product like the way we're making them, and stuff like that. So I don't know, I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second, so I apologize. So I mean, I'll just end it on this with like the ingredients, then I'll answer your question here, Casey. Every single Endurelite product that comes out will always have efficacious dosing, so the amount showed by research to actually have an effect. It will always have a fully transparent label, so you know exactly what you're getting every single time. I'm never going to put proprietary blends in there, you know, and I'm never going to put gray area ingredients in there. And I'm always going to educate you guys on everything that's in there via the Endurelite blog or through these videos, or, you know, people that just send me questions along the way. Because like I said, I'm not, you know, of course I'm in this business to make money, but first and foremost, and a lot of people on this this broadcast can vouch for me, I'm more interested in bringing you guys a quality product that enhances endurance performance and providing you the education behind it than offering you a bunch of bullshit bro science videos and shitty products. Like I said, I have zero interest in that. So enough, I'll get off my soapbox on that rant right there. So Casey asked, are you planning on doing any independent studies on your stuff? Yes, we are. So my partner, his name is Jordan Joy. He's the actual chief science officer over here at Endurelite, and we'll see more of him soon. He has his PhD in exercise physiology and sports nutrition, but more importantly than that, this guy is a research superstar. Like, he's younger than me, and he has more peer-reviewed publications on the topics of nutrition, supplementation, and training than guys like that are 50, 60 years old. So he is an absolute superstar. So here's the plan. Pretty soon, Endurelite will be opening up our own research and testing lab, and that's kind what it sounds like. We'll have the equipment in there, like metabolic cards to test VO2 max. We'll have the ability to draw blood. We'll be able to do body composition. We'll have wind gates for power production, heart rate monitors, everything. So, you know, legitimately, we will probably have some research studies running, I would say, by 2019, the best case scenario. And, you know, more than likely, I bet what we'll do is we'll probably start with doing a research study on Performalite, because a lot of the questions we get, like with Performalite, is, you know, why can't I just take caffeine by itself, you know, compared to Performalite? So that would be actually a pretty cool research to do, like compare Performalite to caffeine versus a placebo, and see if there's any difference in terms of, you know, VO2 max or time to fatigue or other kind of more traditional measures of endurance performance. So, yep, you know, we are really big on science over at Endurely, and, you know, a lot of companies throw that term out so loosely now. Industry, like, oh, we're all based on science and stuff like that. But I can only name a handful of guys in the supplement industry that actually have the background to, you know, actually even like read a peer-reviewed paper and understand the data to actually see if, you know, like the study was well run, or if, you know, you can just throw it aside or actually take into account what they're saying is true and whatnot. So, I mean, God, I even have a hard time interpreting like research now, and I'm pretty well versed in it. So, yeah, science is huge with Endurely. That's what all our products are based around, and that's what we're always going to bring you is products backed by science. So, I'm trying to think if there's anything else notable to talk about today. I don't think so. Any other questions at all? Again, we'll keep it open here for about another 10 to 20 seconds for questions. If there's nothing, I'm gonna get going. Awkward silence. A lot of people have asked me why I'm so goofy in my videos a lot of times, and that's just kind of my nature. But figured I'd provide you guys a little bit of entertainment value instead of just like droning on in a monotonous voice in a lot of my videos. But yeah, no problem, Nathan. I'll get a much better answer for you on the nitrates from bacon and stuff like that. And I'm still researching your question about the whole weight loss thing, and if calories in versus calories out is always just as simple as that. So I haven't forgot you about that. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for tuning in. All right. Well, I'm gonna call it quits. Get back to my day. Again, if any of you guys have questions after this broadcast, always feel free to direct message me, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. So I'm going to end with my typical sign off and say, until next time, my endurance friends, stay fueled, stay focused, and stay fast.